Hey, get ready for not a lot of 1 o'clock games.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, let's do this, everybody, on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network. What's going on? Matt Derry with you on this Tuesday, May 13th, into Schedule Release Wednesday. Tomorrow, May 14th. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you to our everydayers that are out there that watch and listen to the podcast daily, and that includes my guy, Shale Gassani, Mid-States Advisors. I saw Shale tonight at a great AM and AA event, and he's like, where's the shout out? I promised him weeks ago, and I failed him. So Shale, great to see you tonight. He loves Locked On Lions, loves his Lions. Also, I met Kim Mattis today. Kim's daughter, Lauren, is a huge Lions fan. So Lauren Mattis, thanks for loving the Lions. Welcome to watching us here on YouTube or, of course, listening on the audio side, wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple, Spotify, the Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate you being here. Jeremy Reisman is going to join us momentarily from prideofdetroit.com. If you don't know about POD right now, then you don't follow the Lions. They are the best website. To me, I'm there every day. Prideofdetroit.com is just everything you want in Lions coverage. Jeremy, Eric Schlitt, Ryan, the whole crew, everybody that's there does a phenomenal job. So we're going to talk to the executive. What's his title? He just does it all. The proprietor of prideofdetroit.com, Jeremy Reisman, who covers the Lions, does a great job. Will join us momentarily here on Locked On Lions. We mentioned it yesterday. We're going to say it again today. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, NFL schedule released. That means we will know when the Lions are playing all 17 of their games. As of right now, as I'm recording at 7:21 on Tuesday night, there have been no schedule leaks. We don't know any of the games that the Lions are going to be playing yet. And this morning, how about this one? Joe Buck and Troy Aikman went on Good Morning America on ABC, and they were on there to announce that I think it's the Week 10 Monday Night Football game is going to be Green Bay and Philadelphia. And Robin Roberts was talking to Joe Buck and asked him what to expect from some of the games, in prime time that fans are going to see. And Joe Buck said, quote, "You're going to see the Cowboys, you're going to see the Chiefs, and you're going to see the Lions. All of a sudden, every network wants the Lions," which is to their credit. They've turned it around. Troy and I used to do Thanksgiving in Detroit every other year. It's like, oh my God, we're in Detroit. Now it's like, oh my God, we're in Detroit. We get to watch the Lions, end quote. How about that? Every network wants the Lions. That means to me, this team is going to be playing so many 425 games, so many 820 games, Sunday night, Monday night, you sprinkle in a Thursday nighter, a lot of 425ers too, with just how popular they are. But nothing has changed from yesterday. I've heard possibly Lions at Washington in week 1. If they're not in prime time on either Sunday night or Monday night in week 1, they're going to be in week 2. One of the first 2 weeks, they're going to be on NBC or they're going to be on ESPN or ABC for Monday Night Football. So get ready for that. When you got Joe Buck, all right, one of the legendary voices of the NFL, going on network television this morning and saying, look, you're going to see a lot of Dallas, which we know Cowboys are either the most loved or the most hated team, or you're going to see Kansas City with all the star power, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, all of that. And then Detroit. How about that? The networks want the Lions, and there's going to be a nice battle to see who gets them and how often. But if you think you're going to see the Lions at 1 o'clock on Fox, probably not. I mean, there's hardly any matchups like Lions and Giants, Lions and Browns. Then other than that, the rest of the schedule with having to play Pittsburgh and Cincinnati and all the NFC East teams like a Dallas, which is a marquee game, and a Washington and a Philly, having to play Kansas City, that first place schedule. Lions having to play Baltimore. it's not going to be an easy schedule, and there aren't going to be a lot of games that fans don't want to see. It's not going to be that 1 p.m. Lions Tennessee Titans game. Jeremy Reisman coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on the upcoming schedule. We will be on tomorrow night for an evening pod to go over the schedule. Matt Derry with you. It is a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Jeremy is going to join us coming up next from Pride of Detroit. But first, Locked On Lions brought to you by FanDuel. NBA playoffs are going on right now, full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. How about the Knicks? One win away from the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years. Celtics just lost Jason Tatum. You want to put some money on the game tomorrow night for Game 5, you can do that with FanDuel. They make it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. All right, if you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back that up with a same-game parlay? How could a $200 bonus in bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? Well, it can at FanDuel. If you're new to FanDuel, here's what you got to do. It's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $20 in bonus bets. Or excuse me, $200 in bonus bets. $200 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, folks, here he is from prideofdetroit.com. I called him the proprietor earlier of that said site. Jeremy Reisman, one of the Lions beat writers that joins us. We always love catching up with him. Jared, great to see you.
Hey, appreciate you having me back.
What's going on, my friend? Normally I'm on your site and I'm refreshing. I'm like, Jeremy or Eric or someone's going to have like week 6. You got nothing's come out yet. This is wild.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you kind of thought maybe they were going to be part of these, all these networks are releasing their kind of favorite games or their marquee games of the 2025 season. And none of them have mentioned the Lions. Maybe they're not as hot of a commodity as we thought. I still imagine they're going to have a ton of primetime games and all that, but it's just kind of interesting that when these networks are deciding which games they want to release early, none of them have picked the Lions.
Well, if you listen to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman this morning on ABC on
Right.
Good Morning America, I mean, they're basically saying these networks are fighting for the Lions right now,
Right.
and that it's the Cowboys, the Chiefs, and the Lions is who the networks want. Can you even believe this?
I don't think I ever thought we'd get to that level of infamy or fame or whatever with the Lions, where they'd be amongst the 3 most popular teams in terms of, TV. I mean, we heard it from Rod Wood, right, at the owners meetings too, where he was like, we were the number 1 rated team by CBS, the number 1 rated game on CBS, the number 1 rated game on Prime, the number 1 rated game on all these other networks last year. And so it shouldn't be a surprise that all of them are fighting over the Lions. It's weird that we are here this late in the game with the schedule release coming, that we don't know anything yet.
Yeah, we're nearly 24 hours away as we're recording here with Jeremy. And Rod said it also at the Detroit Economic Club luncheon, like, don't expect a lot of 1:00 games. Right. I'm anticipating Sunday night or Monday night to start the season. I've heard some rumblings about Washington possibly. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think they could go a million different ways, right? It'd be nice if it was a home opener like that at Ford Field, especially a primetime one. That would be exciting. But they have so many different away games that are just marquee matchups that I could honestly see any of them. I'm not hearing anything like that would be speculation at this point. I kind of like the idea of Washington, keep, the revenge fresh in everyone's mind from what happened in the playoffs. I also like the idea of let's do the Ben Johnson thing right off the bat. Let's get the Bears in here and get the Detroit fans fired up for, I guess, now public enemy number 1.
It is. And I'll say this too. And I think Ben Johnson, that's the last game he wants to play in week 1. I mean, right. I wouldn't think, although the way he's been talking, maybe that is what he wants. We'll see.
We'll see if if the dog has more bite than bark, I guess.
No question. as we're approaching this, and I know some things will probably leak out tonight and tomorrow, but that road schedule, Jeremy, is brutal. It absolutely is. I can't remember a time the Lions had this kind of road schedule, but a year ago they won every road game they played. How are you viewing this? What are you expecting? And do you look at the predictions maybe and go, they can't win 15 games again, because just how ruthless the schedule is.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, winning 15 games in back-to-back seasons, I don't know if it's probably happened once or twice in history, but I wouldn't expect it here. And it's not just that, that they have a really tough schedule. That's just an extremely hard thing to do every single year. It's an extremely hard thing to be that consistent week to week that you win 15 games. It's why it was such a remarkable accomplishment last year, despite what happened in the playoffs. Doing what they did is not normal for most teams. It only happens once every few years with any team. So it was a special season for the Lions, and the way the schedule looks, I mean, it's tough, right? You're playing the two best teams in the NFC East. You're playing arguably the two best teams in the AFC North. You're playing a division that you're in that's going to be very competitive. And so, undefeated on the road doesn't seem very likely. I think what makes it even more remarkable and drastically different from last year too, is that 7 of those 9 away games are outdoors.
Yeah.
Last year, I don't think they played an outdoor game until November, maybe even December. So, that's going to be a new challenge. Now, I think you look at this Lions team and you think they're probably built to play outside, right? They do all the physical, gritty stuff that lends their game to being in those outdoor games, but they just haven't done it a lot under Dan Campbell. And so it'll be kind of a new, unique challenge for them, and we'll see how they rise to the occasion or not.
By the way, do you have a Thanksgiving Day guess?
Ooh, man. They really like to lean into the divisional games, which is kind of a bummer for me. I want Steelers. I think, you bring in a good market with Steelers. And I think, there's an outside chance there. It's an Aaron Rodgers returns to Ford Field game. That would add, I think, a little extra excitement for the crowd. I like when they go a little bit outside of the box of the NFC North. So call that my prediction, call that my preference. That's what I'll look for.
Jeremy Reisman with us, prideofdetroit.com. If you're not on that website like I am every day, you're missing out. These guys do fantastic work, of course, covering this team. As far as the offseason has gone, Jeremy, how would you kind of highlight it? What have you liked? What haven't you liked? And what do you think of the draft, too?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty tempered down offseason, right? It's very interesting watching kind of fans react to off seasons now that the dynamic of this team is completely shifted, where, the draft and free agency used to be the most popular time for all of our podcasts, for all of our websites, all that sort of stuff. And fans have, I wouldn't say checked out necessarily, but they so trust the process where we don't really we trust Brad. We'll check in back in September. And I think there's also a little bit of leftover hangover from what happened in the season. And so my personal, preferences of what the Lions did this offseason, I think it's a relatively smart approach. I know it's not sexy to bring, retention, just bring back players that were really good, bring back a squad that went 15-2. And I think you think back to some of the days, Jim Caldwell, maybe even before that, when the Lions had one good season and then it kind of seemed like they rested on their laurels and took a step back the next year. I get the concern that maybe that's what's happening here, but at the same time, this has been more consistent success. This has been a slow rise. This has been a core team that is surrounded by young talent, not these guys that you're bringing in for free agency or anything like that. So I understand it. I get it. I think it's the smart way to approach this, making sure you have the money in future years to spend on those young players as they get veteran contracts. The draft was, I'm a little bit more lukewarm on. I like the first round pick. I like Tyreek. I like Tate Ratledge. I'm with a lot of people though. The slot pick is one that I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit. I see the vision. Obviously, this is a guy who has a tremendous amount of athletic talent. I think you're putting a level of trust into your coaching staff, which is understandable. It's a very good coaching staff. But we've seen Brad kind of take these, heat checks, whatever you want to call them, big swings where they take a guy where, 100 places higher than a lot of projections, right? And who cares what the media?
Broderick Martin
Yes.
was one.
Broderick Martin was one. I would say that, Giovanni Manu was another. That's obviously still in the TBD category, but these huge reaches that he's made, and I say reaches knowing that the media's opinion of these players doesn't really matter. But when you look at his history, like if there's one place where you can be like, I'm not sure if he's good at doing that yet, it's these heat check kind of picks. And so we'll have to wait and see with Tesla. Like he's not the same person that Broderick Martin is. He's not the same person that Giovanni Manu is. He's his own guy, and he's going to deal with his own trials and tribulations. And I think there's going to be a little bit of additional pressure on him just because it was such a big swing and the trade up and all of that stuff. But I think the Lions are not going to rush it either. They don't need to. They have a good enough receiving core. They have a good enough supporting cast where maybe he doesn't have a big year at all this year. And maybe it's year 3 until we really see him break out. But that's what the Lions have kind of how they've treated those middle rounds, right? Is they don't need immediate contributions on offense and defense. We have the time, we have the roster to develop those players.
Interesting that everybody is kind of labeling Isaac Tesla as the eventual JMO replacement if they can't sign him. Yet today, Scotty Montgomery said, "Hey, JMO's going to have a huge year this year."
Right.
Kind of ironic circle of trust, I guess, right now. With JMO still under contract for 2 more years, but what's your read on all of that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like all this trade JMO conversation really got stirred up by what Brad said at the owners meetings a couple months ago or a month ago, whatever it was, when he said, listen, we're not going to commit to him long term yet. We're going to see where he's at. We're going to exercise that 5th year option, but wide receiver is an expensive position. It might not be something that we look at. We're already paying one. Can we afford a second? And listen, I think once he said that, it's fair to have that conversation next year, right? Like there's really no reason to do it now.
No.
He's still incredibly cheap. You have him on 2 cost controlled seasons. You're still kind of scratching the surface. And like everyone said today, all the offensive coaches, like he is still growing. They still have a lot of faith in that. He has got a lot more underneath that. And he's putting in the work. He's putting in the effort. He's starting to put together the pieces to be a really good player. And so while that Brad Holmes quote from the owners meetings should stick out in your mind, I think you also have to allow the possibility that he plays his way into another contract here. He changes their mind. Brad Holmes said that, not saying definitively we're not going to re-sign him or we are. I think he basically said it like he's going to have to prove his worth here, and they're going to give him his opportunity to do so. And I think so far so good.
Jeremy Reisman with us from prideofdetroit.com. Want to ask him a couple more things about the draft and also get into the division as well. We'll do that right after this. Thanks for making Locked On Lions your first listen today, but your second listen, you can check out Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is done, but the roster moves and news never stops. Hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Jeremy Reisman with us, prideofdetroit.com, POD. They do a fantastic job. They got the POD cast as well, which is a lot of fun, and they're on all the time. You mentioned before about Ratledge. That was my favorite pick. I love the big fella. I just thought, especially with the mullet and just everything else, especially his comments at the combine, just fit the Lions. How do you view where he'll be? And I know he worked out in rookie minicamp all over the place, including at center, but how do you envision the middle of that Lions offensive line, or maybe just left guard and right guard, and where it will shake out come week 1?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think it's, worth underscoring how much they are playing him at center. And we talked to Hank Fraley today as well. And he said, listen, this is a guy who doesn't know the position that well, and we want to make sure that he does. It's important to them that he learns the center position. Do I think that's going to be his primary position? Absolutely not. I think he is going to be the Lions starting right guard this season, whether he earns it right off the bat or later on. I think the vision there is Graham Glasgow, right? It's let's have a starting guard who has the flexibility to play center, because center is such a critical position that we don't really ever want to put a guy that's coming off cold that can't break a starting lineup to be in such a critical position on the offensive line, which is center. And so they look at him as a smart guy capable of taking those sort of, responsibilities, getting to know the offense enough. And he doesn't have to do it right away, right? They do have Graham Glasgow. He can be their backup center for this year, but I think the long-term vision is that they want Tate to be that guy that is already in the starting lineup. And if anything happens to Frank, he can slide over and take over that role. The left guard position to me is completely up for grabs. It could be Graham. It could be Mahogany. And I'm not counting out Miles Frazier either. I think it's going to be a true competition there. But I think that's where the competition will be at. I do think Tate is going to be at right guard, where he played the majority of his time at Georgia. And then the left guard position to me is the one that's going to just be completely up for grabs. And you might see a different guy repping there every single day of training camp.
It's interesting too with Graham because he had a really good year on the left side. Or on the right side
on
2 years ago. Moves to the left because you want Zeitler over there. And it was a struggle the second half of the year. Our buddy Jeff Risden points that out a lot. So, moving him back, maybe to the right side, but like you said, that's where Ratledge was so good in the SEC, the best conference in the league. But it's a good problem to have because I think there's more depth. And like you said, Frazier being in the mix will be nice as well.
Yeah. And I think it's worth pointing out too, Graham was dealing with some injuries down the stretch there too. And I think there's certainly a possibility that he looks a lot better this year, even though, he's getting up there in age for sure.
Take me through, the Ben Johnson, Matt LaFleur stuff is fun. And certainly him leaving, Aaron Glenn, his comments yesterday about JMO and just AG has said all the right things in New York. And I thought he handled the Aaron Rodgers thing great. Ben Johnson's gone over to Chicago. And now, like you said, fans calling him Benedict Johnson, cute little shots at Jared Goff, the Matt LaFleur stuff. How do you think he'll genuinely do? And are you sold? I mean, there's people saying the Bears could win the division. I mean, do you think they could even finish second? I don't.
I think they could probably sneak in a wild card, whether that's second or third in the division. We'll see. Winning the division, it's too early. You're putting the cart before the horse there. I understand they have all of the offensive pieces in place. They obviously spent a lot on the offensive line. They have more weapons at their disposal. But you're still dealing with what essentially is like, whenever a rookie quarterback gets a completely different system in year two, to me, that's just rookie season 2.0. It's basically another rookie season for him. And it's not very common in which rookie quarterbacks, or, in this case, a second year quarterback just turns the corner in an instant. It's going to take time. It's going to take time for Ben Johnson to figure out what everyone on his team does well. And defensively, I think there's still a lot of questions about that team, particularly up front. So, I get why Lions fans are upset about him. He goes to a division rival. I do think some of what he said has been a little bit exaggerated, and I think he's being playful, right? And I think the biggest question is like, will that playful kind of like competitive attitude work? Will that play to the city of Chicago? Will it play to the locker room? Whereas I think Aaron Glenn has built up enough goodwill. He's able to relate to players as a former player. That there's good, like the buy-in in New York, I think is going to be much easier than the buy-in in Chicago, despite the fact that I think Chicago is probably going to rack up the wins earlier than New York is. New York, their roster is way behind, but that culture is going to be built much like it was in Detroit, where the roster might not be in the right place, but you have the right kind of people in that building that's going to withstand some of the turbulence. The question is, can Ben Johnson do that too? Because as good as the roster is, or as better as the roster is than it is in New York, they're going to face some early turbulence. And I would rather trust Aaron Glenn over Ben Johnson when things get rocky, but I'm not counting out Ben Johnson either. I'm sure he's learned plenty from his time in Detroit.
All right, so last year was Minnesota that pushed the Lions. It came down to week 18. Obviously, the Lions just blitzed the heck out of Darnold to the point where he's no longer there. His last two games were a struggle. How do you view the rest of the division? Who does push Detroit? And what do you think about JJ in Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, that's the ultimate question there, because I think Minnesota, is arguably the best coach team in the division. The fact that they were able to get to where they were with Sam Darnold as quarterback, I think is proof that, not that it's a quarterback, proof system, but it's a coaching staff that knows how to get their best out of a quarterback, even one that maybe a lot of people had buried. Now, JJ McCarthy is a complete unknown at this point. What did we get a half of a preseason game with him last year? So I can't sit here and tell you, even, as a Michigan Wolverine fan, what you're going to get in him. I don't know. He didn't throw the ball a ton at Michigan, so I feel like I don't have enough of a sample size with him. So it could go either way, but I'm willing to bet on that coaching staff to, at least by the end of the year, have him running the offense in a pretty competent way, especially with all the weapons that they have. And defensively, that team can be a nightmare for basically every other team other than the Lions. Be interesting to see if Ben Johnson has his cure for Brian Flores in Chicago as well. And then, I think the Packers are probably one of the teams with the fewest questions, not with zero questions. I think there's plenty of questions still about Jordan Love. I'm not ready to crown him, the third Hall of Famer in a row in Green Bay, like some Packers seem to be eager to do, at least last year. But they're just, they are just kind of like humming along. They didn't have a crazy active offseason either, but I think that's because they understood that they're in a pretty good spot too. So, I think the Packers are probably the team, just by nature of not having too many questions, are the team that I think will give the Lions the biggest run, but I think the Vikings are going to be right there too. It's just a matter of how quickly they can get JJ McCarthy on track.
All right, Jeremy, give me a name. It could be a UDFA. It could be one of the draft picks. It could be one of the free agents. Maybe somebody they re-signed. Who's standing out to you so far, or maybe that you're excited about seeing that maybe will make more noise than the average fan thinks?
That's a good question. I'm kind of a Dan Jackson fan, the 7th round safety out of Georgia. Right. I can't say that I saw a ton of him out of rookie minicamp, and what we saw, there was one rep that really stood out to me where it was kind of a crossing route from a tight end where he had to like fight his way through traffic to get there. And it took, a lot of anticipation. It took a lot of knowledge of the game to really get to the spot where he needed to be. And he kind of did it effortlessly. And, when I saw that play, I thought back to the quote from Brad Holmes on draft night, where he said, like, when you kind of learn his situation, obviously he came in as a walk-on at Georgia and earned his way to be a starter that senior year there, or super senior year, or whatever it was. And the reasoning for it, Brad Holmes said, like, there's a reason why he was the guy running that defense. And I think it's smarts. I think that guy is going to be very smart. He's going to understand the defense probably quicker than most rookies will. And that's on top of the fact that he's out of the box, a 4-core special teamer. Like, he's going to be active. I don't normally say this for 7th round picks, especially with where the Lions roster is at, but he, to me, screams as a guy that is a no question will make the 53-man roster and will be active on game days, just for how valuable he is on special teams. And then I don't think he's going to win the safety 3 spot behind the 2 starters right away, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's in that spot by the end of the season. I think he has that level of intelligence, even if like some of the size, speed metrics aren't where they need to be.
Brad Holmes would be very proud of us. It's 27 minutes in. We have not brought up edge rusher.
Pat on the back for both of us.
I don't know if I did that on purpose, but I just was like sitting there going, wait a minute, I didn't have to talk to Jeremy about the edge rushing spot, because I guess I could. I mean, you have a guy that, look, if Marcus Davenport's healthy, he's going to play. The question is,
he's going to start.
Right. But like, I don't know, but do you have like a crystal ball by week 9 or 10? You're like, who's lining up opposite of Aiden? Ready, go.
Yeah, man. Yeah, good luck. I don't know. I in an ideal world, it is Davenport. They love the guy, and he does do everything that they want him to do. He's physical. He sets the edge, and he's got a bundle of athleticism too, where he can rush the passer. He can turn a run setting edge into a pass rush and be successful there. It's just, it's a matter of staying healthy. Outside of him, I'm really curious what they're going to do with Josh Paschal and Levi Onwuzurike. I know they had said earlier this offseason that they want Paschal on the inside a little bit more. Does that mean we see a little bit more of Levi on the outside? We saw plenty of that last year too, but that kind of seemed like that was out of necessity as well. So if not those two, can Hassanin work his way up by the end of the season? I love the guy. I love the story. And I'm not going to put a cap on what his ceiling is long-term. I just think, expecting him to be a starter at any point in 2015 is probably a little unrealistic. But there are other guys that they like in that locker room as well. And, we'll see what guys, that kind of won fans' heart last preseason, Isaac Uku, Mitchell Agude. We'll see where they've grown in a year's time. But I think that the guys that we already named, those are the main players. And those are the guys that you're going to see a lot in the edge this year.
Jeremy, thanks so much. It was always a pleasure. Thanks for coming on, and keep up the great work.
Of course. Anytime for you, buddy.
Jeremy Reisman, prideofdetroit.com. I said he was the proprietor. We can use the title managing editor, does a great job. We'll be back with you tomorrow night following the announcement at 8 o'clock of the schedule right here on Locked On Lions.